Hi everyone, I'm back. I've just finished moving through that row of basket weave and I'm coming up upon this leaf and I want to work through this section because the fabric has moved. I can feel the batting wanting to move and we could have some potential for puckers. So I want to go ahead and work with you through that. Again, you're going to have to start using your fingertips, your hand tensioning to keep that tension right on the fabric. It's looking pretty good. I kept my hand tension right in this area just before I came across. And remember, when you start feeling it, you also want to slow down. So going away from that area to the right, I didn't feel anything, but going to the left, I'm going to feel that fabric want to push, like see how that pushes right there? So here I'm really going to want to keep my hand tensioning, use my fingertips to pull the fabric, and I'm going to want to slow down and watch how that fabric moves. And that stayed really good. That was really good. Up and across. Okay, here's another potential for the fabric to want to pucker. Fabulous. We didn't have any issues there. All right, hopefully, as we move through this section, I am going to move a little bit slower now. I think we have enough stitches stitched down everywhere that we're not going to have a problem. Great. So in these areas, just take your time. Now at this particular spot, the basket weave goes underneath the leaf, so we're not going to be able to travel all the way to the left, come up and come back to the right. So I'm going to travel back up, hit that line that I drew, touch that leaf on that travel line, come back, now go down, now come across. All right, right here, I've got a potential to pucker. Put my needle down and I'm going to skip, almost do a little extra length. You're going to have to go slow if you can. And if you just go a little bit longer than your normal stitch length and hit it on the other side onto the travel line, you won't have a pucker. Travel right on over, come back, and we're good to go. So it's very important to try and use your foot pedal to control your needle. It takes some practice, so don't get frustrated with it. Again, our design disappears behind the leaf, so we're going to have to make some adjustments. We'll be off of our pattern per se. So I'm going to come up here, travel over, come down, and I need to come across and make sure that I got the top of the previous row. Come over, needle down, check my quilt so it doesn't hang off and pull, up, find that travel line, come down, over, and now I'm just going to use that travel line to go back to that nice rhythm step, the step-by-steps that we were doing. Find the travel line, follow it around, over, and we have touched the travel line, and we have finished this section of the basket weave. I'm going to pan out so you can see the result. Next, when we come back, I'll show you a little bit more of what I have finished and address any other issues that we may have with some potential puckers around the center of the quilt with that small motif that was drawn with the floral and vine. Here I have completed this row, and I have this close-up view because I want you to take a look at this area right in here. You can see when I use the end of the pen how much batting has creeped up and pushed into that area. All along this area right here where there are tight curves from the wings, you can see that the batting has pushed up. At this point, if I were to pan out, and I'm not going to do that at this time, if I were to pan out and move across to the right, we would be ending our row back in that long, curvy swirl that's kind of like the tailwind of the butterfly. And there is no puckering or excess batting there. So what I'm going to do is change up from the way I was quilting, and I'm going to break thread, which I already have, and I'm ready to place it down right here where I feel a pucker is going to start. I'm going to have to do a lot of manipulating of the fabric, but if I concentrate on trying to move away to the right, I should be able to push this batting and manipulate it to where it will lay down a lot better for me. So there's a potential pucker spot right there, another one right in here. It gets better as we move up into this area, but it's these particular areas that I want to go over with you and see if we can't quilt through that without having any puckers happen right there. If they do, they'll be so minimal that it'll actually add to the texture and charm of this quilt. So let me go ahead and drop my needle down into place. Go ahead and get my quilt top ready here. Put my anchoring stitches in. And I'm going to move away to the right. Okay, at this point, I have the availability, and in your domestic machine as well, if you have an up button, I'm going to go ahead and bring my needle up. I'm going to hold the fabric down with my left hand, and I really want to focus as best I can with the needle so you can see. It's very hard to capture this, but I'm holding very tight with my left hand to the left of the needle, and now I'm going to grab with my right hand. I may even scrunch it up and give it a pull. I don't want to lose my needle spot, but I want to start pulling that fabric. You see how I'm pulling with my thumb there? I'm going to line my needle up so it goes right back in the hole. Now I'm going to gently and slowly, that's the key, slowly move up. I'm going to lift my needle again. I'm going to give it another little pull. You can see the difference right in there. Make sure that my needle goes back down into the same hole, and as my needle comes up, I'm going to continue to pull and move very slowly. And I was able to complete that line of stitching without any pucker. So now I'm going to move up the edge, that travel line of the butterfly wing. Now I can freely move across, and I'm all good. Now I'm going to get ready again. I'm going to lift my needle, pull on that fabric, up slowly, lift my needle again, reposition. See the change in that right there? Make sure that my needle's going to go back down in that same hole and slowly move across to the left. If you are coming to your last stitch or two and you notice that you're still going to have a teeny weeny pucker, the best thing to do, if you can, I don't know that domestic machines, I haven't tried this on one. I'm going to go ahead and clip that because I don't want it in my way. If you can cause your needle to hesitate, I know on my sit-down long arm I can hold with my foot almost like I'm going to ask it to go up and stay up. If you get to that point where your last stitch, if you can manipulate your hand to move over just a little bit quicker than your normal timing and hit your needle into your travel line, you'll actually skip over that little pucker, and you won't even notice anything if you're able to do that. So take some practice, but once you learn, it will be a great tool. And so from here, I can start back to my normal stitching. And what makes this great is right up here, I don't know if you can see, it's so hard, but right on this line right here, I actually did a stitch line across. Remember when I talked about breaking up this pattern a little bit? So like every 4 to 5 rows, I actually put a straight stitch line that I'll end up traveling on anyway, but that helped to break up my quilting so I could stop and start at different points. And it also, again, make sure that that batting is secure and nothing's going to move around too much. You'll still have a little fabric that can move, but it will give you a little bit more security in when you're working across, and less chance of that batting and fabric to move too much on you. So I'm going to go ahead and break away, work some more on this portion, and we'll come back if there are any more issues that I think you might be interested in learning how to handle. Hello everyone, I'm back. This is the row by row, row 4 tutorial. I have been working on our background filler basket weave. As you can see, I've made it halfway up the butterfly. I have been able to avoid any puckers. I just finished coming to this point of this section of the quilt where the airflow from the butterfly separates with the purls and swirls and the basket weave. I have talked to you about breaking up your quilting area of the basket weave, and you can see here the line that I have quilted across, and this will be a travel line, so that'll hide anyway, especially if you're using a lighter weight thread like bottom line. But I want to show you some areas that we want to troubleshoot now before we get into big trouble. And that is this area right here and this area right here. There is a lot of batting that needs to be quilted down, and you can see a lot of fabric that's moving. And so as I consider my next move, which would be to work this very tight corner right here to make sure we don't have any puckers, I'm thinking that I need to go back to the same philosophy as when I quilted these purls and swirls. If you remember, all of this was very, very fluffy like this, and I showed you how to go from the outer edge of that triple echo line and quilt from that point down into palm size, hand size sections to help stabilize our quilting area so that the batting and the fabric wouldn't move. If I were to start quilting, as my finger moves, that's going to be my hopping foot. Can you see how the fabric is moving? And we're going to have the fabric and batting. We're going to have more areas of potential of puckers. So what I'm going to do is something I've not done, and we're going to see if this works, is I'm going to go ahead and put in some line work similar to this, but I'll have to follow the pattern, and I'm going to break these areas up into more manageable areas in hopes that this will stabilize my quilting area so I can avoid puckers. So I am going to go ahead and start dropping my thread. Again, I'm going to kind of use my 4 fingers here as my guide. So I'm going to drop my thread, my needle, right here on that echo line of the edge of that leaf. Get myself my anchoring stitches. I'm going to zoom in for you and readjust. And while the camera settles, I'm going to put my gloves on because I really want to be able to hand tension this batting and fabric. So I need to have a really good grip. So again, I'm going to hand tension out to try and see all that movement in there. I'm going to hand tension out. And now I'm going to stitch. And I'm just going to follow a line here. Right here, it wants to pucker. I'm going to hold it with my thumbs, and I'm right there. Very good. You can travel if you want. I'm going to go ahead and anchor and cut thread because I really don't want a lot of thread buildup. Even this is for texture. I still want to avoid that thread buildup. So I'm going to go ahead and break my thread. I will go ahead and continue breaking up these areas, and when I return, I'll show you the results and see if that worked. Hello everyone, I'm back. I have completed what I was discussing a moment ago. I went in and all across this area where the batting is really high and there are potential for puckers, I went in and found some lines and just stitched down and secured the batting. I even went all the way up into this area. I've already quilted this part on this side of the quilt, so I went ahead and started my needle here and came down and secured this area, hand width secured here, hand width started over here, brought it down. So I secured it all the way across. So now I can start addressing the areas, especially right here where it's very, very tight and there could be a pucker. I'm going to go ahead and address that area and work in these smaller sections. When I feel comfortable, I can go back to quilting across, but at least now that I have this anchored here, what I may do is work in this area and complete all this little intricate work here. I'll let you know how it goes. When I come back, I will have completed this section, and we'll talk about any issues I may have had that you may come across. Until then, happy quilting!